I'm Angela, the chair of Democrats Abroad Global Black Caucus.
And I'm Adrienne, and I lead the Global Black Caucus Get Out the Vote team.
I live in Germany, and I vote in Florida.
And I vote in D.C. from Sweden, D.C. statehood.
Welcome to the Power to the People podcast.
Angela launched this podcast in 2018 to drive conversations for expats around the issues facing the Black community back home.
And to motivate you to vote in the U.S. elections. I know we've been saying this for a while, but the 2024 elections are so important, and sitting on the sidelines isn't an option.
I mean, no, it's not. Do not tune out. Instead, tune into this podcast and share this with all the woke people you know, and the not so woke, and definitely those who need to be woke.
You get the idea. If you're an American of voting age living overseas, get your voting act together now. Votefromabroad.org is the place to start. Welcome to the Global Black Caucus Power to the People podcast. We have a great guest today. And as always, before we get started, I just want to remind everybody to go to votefromabroad.org to request your absentee ballot. Ask for your ballot to be sent by email so it arrives on time. There is still time to get a ballot. Do not delay, though. Act now. And if you're listening to us in the U.S., go to iwillvote.com and get registered, or make sure that you are still registered because you know how they are.
Make sure those rules throw you off the voting rolls.
Yes.
I want to add, if you are in the U.S., you can maybe start voting now. Early voting has started in a lot of places. As Angela said, if you're overseas, it's not too late, but we were voting since September 21st.
That is
so. Make sure you requested. Let me ask you like this: if you're going to do this now, make sure you get your request for your ballot to be sent by email. If you already did that and where's my ballot? Check your spam. If you didn't do that when you registered and you're waiting for a paper ballot, go back. Or requesting your ballot, go back to Vote from Abroad, do it all over. Send it by email.
Yes.
If you vote in a state where you have to return a paper ballot and your mail is funky in your host country, do the federal right and emergency absentee ballot, right? FWAB. Whichever gets there first is what by voting day is what they'll count. If they get your emergency ballot and then your proper ballot comes, that's what they're going to count. But we have a federally protected right.
That's right.
Into that, you're right.
We have a federal protected right to vote. Don't let anybody like Donald Trump or his minions try to dissuade you from voting, because you are perfectly legal to vote. We are U.S. citizens, and we have the same right to vote as anybody else. One other thing, we actually are now at the point where we have a majority of states that allow electronic return. So if you have a ballot, use electronic return.
He was complaining about fact. He started advocating for this now. Like, Cal, if you don't go get Genius Facts on your phone or look up online free faxing, I was like, thank God for it. They support the vote. I was like, thank God for it, unless you.
That's right. That's right. You can scan your ballot in with Adobe Scan. You can get it on your phone, scan your ballot, and then take that scanned PDF and then turn it around with fax or with email, depending on your state. So yeah, don't delay. But without further ado, because that was kind of a long opening.
That was a long. Are you still with us, Tanya?
I'm still here. Yeah, we would like to, if you want to introduce our guest, Adrienne, that would be super.
Yeah, and because I've been crushing on Tanya for years, she's done a phenomenal work in an international organization for women, which is where I met her before she walked away. Now, Chip, that's another episode. That's going to be in the Black Women in Europe podcast. But you'll hear that before you hear those hopefully, because we had to really not talk about voting. But Tanya is the founder of the Angry Black Woman website. She's based in Germany. She votes back home in the States, and she put out a voting guide. So I'm so thrilled to have a Shiro here. So Tanya from Angry Black Woman, welcome and tell us. Now we're gonna be quiet and let you talk. Tell us everything about angry Black women in your voting.
So hi everyone. Let's see. I guess we'll start with Angry Black Woman. That was a website that I developed in the mid 2000s. And it was basically sort of being able. First, it came to be because I was, as a Black woman living in another country, and sort of some of the things that I would experience, I needed to be able to kind of process that. And so I guess in a way it started in, well, I just get to sit and rant, and I can do that online and nobody's going to read it anyway. And then it sort of turned into, was like, well, no, it's a voice that I think is important because it was dealing with a lot of issues. That then you had the time when Hillary did not win the electoral vote. And you could kind of see, a lot of people, oh, I'm moving overseas and I'm going to other places. And I was like, well, but what's that going to solve? Because you still bring yourself with you, right? And it still doesn't change any of the issues that are happening in your own backyard. And so as I've lived overseas, I've learned more about my history, Black history, about things that I didn't know growing up. And so I made a conscious effort to be able to do that. So the Angry Black Woman came to me.
For that, Kim. 1 second. What did moving out else? What did you learn after living overseas? That you said you learned some things. How does living overseas help you learn things about American history?
Well, one of the things, I became very protective of being American, and I became very protective of being Black American, because when you go into other countries, right, you see through their eyes how they view America, but also how our culture is viewed and appropriated in a lot of places. And so I would see sort of random things. I think you and I spoke a little bit about it having to do, I would walk in and see this thing about Black music. What is Black music? What is that? It was just very, I realized it at that point, and I was like, no, I'm American. Like, you would see really horrible food and they would slap an American flag on it and say it's from America. And then all of a sudden you're supposed to eat it. And I'm like, well, we don't even eat that. What is that? Or the taste for it. And it was just all of these kind of like just random things. And so that is part of being me. I'm an American, and no, I'm going to make sure that you guys understand what America really is. And I think combining that with understanding American history and Black history, because they're both really the same, that became important because I have children, and while my children are being raised in another country, they have dual citizenship. It was important that they understood the American part of their history. I also recognized the fact that they were going to be learning things about my country from someone else's point of view. And I wanted to make sure that they were equipped with actual knowledge and facts. And so my house became like this little mini America. So every, I would have 4th of July parties, huge parties. It's everything. That's Thanksgiving dinner. It was the thing that people were like, are you doing dinner? I would have like 40 people in my house for Thanksgiving dinner. Like, it was a huge thing. And so I was able to sort of let my children have some of the same experiences that I had growing up. But I was able to also introduce other people to some of those customs. And we were able to have really good conversations about what it meant, right? So it wasn't about...
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So
what is that? So at this point, you had the Angry Black women going? Or,
at the beginning, no. Angry Black women came around. It was around 2012, I would say, is when it first started sort of coming to be.
So you were angry before, and I say this angry before George Floyd. So you didn't change the name from the angry Black woman to the like, what could it be? Like, we were angry before or whatever. But I know we're having all these feelings. Talk more about the like the name. Why the name Angry Black?
Well, the name came to be because being a Black woman who has an opinion about anything, whenever I would speak about something, was always that I was angry or that I was aggressive. I wasn't allowed to have normal feelings or express myself in any kind of way. It was always sort of having to feel like that needed to be tempered for the person that was receiving the message, because the color of my skin dictated how that message was going to be received. So I'm always going to be the angry Black woman. Let me take that and flip that. Let me embrace that. I will be angry if that's how it makes you feel comfortable on whether or not you will hear or not hear what it is that I have to say. If my being angry is part of that, then okay, that's a you thing, that's not a me thing. But I'm going to embrace that. Yep, I'm angry, but not for the reasons that one would think. Right? I'm a woman. I have children. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm all of these different things, and I view the world through those lenses. But that part,
you're a nurse, you're a lawyer. So you're dealing with people. You know what I mean? You see people at their lowest when they're frightened, hurt. So you've seen the whole full spectrum of humanity. How are you received? As you practice these careers in Germany, how are you received as? Were you a Black nurse? Or people? I heard stories in Sweden where somebody didn't want to be treated by a Black person. I think I heard that once or something. Crazy, I know. But they use that. You know what it was? They used the thing they wanted to see each other. What's that code?
Well, I haven't actually practiced nursing here. Because the nursing profession in Germany is something that it's not what I do. I'm just good with that. There, it's not what I do. But I do educate them, the people that are coming out. So I haven't had that kind of experience as far as a patient not wanting me to treat them or anything like that. I've had that experience, numerous experiences like that in the States before coming here working with patients, but I haven't had that here. I would say for the most part, professionally, I've not run into a lot of the challenges that I normally would run into in the States, but I also recognize that I've taken sort of my career path in a different way here, and I've been able to chart my own path for that, and for me that's been okay. I do understand that that's not the same for all people, but my personal experience with that professionally has been a lot better here in Germany than it ever was in the United States.
Is that this type of thing you talk about on the angry Black women? Because you say it's not like what people may think it's going to be when they hear the title. What type of things do you talk about?
So I focus on do a lot with a focus on international, because that's the lens that I'm looking at life through right now, right? So what it is to sort of a comparison. So we're looking at healthcare. We're looking at legal systems and structures, and my thing that I wanted to do, and also a lot with Black history, right? Being able to highlight a lot of information that haven't been taught historically, and right now is under siege in a lot of places. It's looking at books and literature, so stuff that's currently being done, stuff that's been done before. I'm a big believer, as an educator, I'm a big believer that you have to find different ways of engaging your audience in order to get them to sort of process and receive whatever information you're trying to give them. And I think that you do that through a lot of different tools. So it's not just about, oh, hey, go watch this movie. It's about, hey, there is this movie. Let's discuss a little bit about it beforehand. sort of be able to address some of the preconceived notions that would come up with that. And then say, okay, now we're going to watch it and let's talk about it afterwards. Let's compare and contrast what you thought you were doing walking into this experience versus how you feel coming out of it. I think that looking at education and sort of how you, especially when you're talking about issues such as race, when you're talking about politics, religion, those types of things that people can hold very personal or have some very decisive views on. I think that you have to find different ways of being able to have those conversations. And so that's really what I try to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
two things.
Well,
yeah, two things I wonder if she's talking about or if she talk about now. Your experience in maternal health in Germany. I have a friend in Sweden who, she had a first child. She didn't like the treatment she got, and neither did her Swedish husband. And she thought it was because she's a Nigerian American. Did you have any maternal health experiences? So we know in America, Black women die when they don't have to. Our state of maternal care is in crisis. And that's one of the things that Kamala Harris brings to the forefront when she talks about issues that affect women and Black women. Have you seen treated differently? No, go on. But did you? I asked the question. I mean, did you get it?
So I get what you're asking. I had I've been able to have both experiences. So my first child was born in the United States, and then my second child was born here in Germany. So that experience for both of them has been night and day, from how much it costs to sort of the way of having, like, I didn't realize going to the hospital that I would have to bring all of my supplies with me, food, including snacks, everything. It was just, I was like, wait, what is happening?
Where was that, in the U.S. or in Germany?
No, in Germany. So in Germany, basically, you bring your towels, you bring all your things. If you want water, those kind of things. Like, they have this room. Dinner is not really dinner. It's that Abendbrot, which Germans love their friggin' Abendbrot. So that's just basically bread with butter, maybe some meat and some cheese and kind of thing. So that's what they do, and that's considered to be dinner. And I'm like, well, no. It's still for me that what did you bring?
Now, what did you bring?
Oh my God, I don't even remember. I took water.
Yeah, I'm curious because you said you knew that bread and like the traditional German mom getting a hospital wasn't going to work for you. So I didn't know, like, what spice did that you charge for American comfort food?
Well, I think my husband for food for different things, and we kind of planned it on that way. So I did that, but it was. I mean, that word, I had been here enough, and I had kind of been able to expect that. I think the thing that for me that was probably the most bizarre part of the process is because you have midwives that deliver children here, not doctors, unless there's a complication or something going on.
Exactly. I just like, you don't want to.
But I don't have that. I had that conversation unless there's a complication or something, yeah. And so when you walk in, so what they have in Germany is they have what's known as Hebammas or Beleghebamme. And those are basically midwives. And the difference between a Hebamme and a Beleghebamme, the Hebamme is already in the hospital. So it's like when you walk in, whoever's on shift, that's who's going to deliver your baby. Versus a Beleghebamme is the Hebamme that comes to your house, you see throughout your pregnancy, and that they have permission in that hospital to be there. So when you go into labor, they come with you. So I had one that came with me. She was English speaking. She was Canadian. I hated her. And because
I think you're all love you. You're still fine.
Well, I do.
So you hated her for whatever reason, but you had to have her because why?
I had to have her, yeah. Because I could communicate with her, and I knew that I could take her, and I needed to see that person. But that's also because I went, and my doctor, my OB, he knew how I felt, and I made it very clear, when I give birth, you are going to be there, and he agreed with that. So that was the process. But it was just weird things, like she would go to test my blood, and so she would go to put a needle in me and she's not wearing gloves. And so as a medical professional, I'm like, that's not acceptable for me. You need to put on gloves. And she's like, I've been doing this for X amount of years and never had a problem. And I was like, that's not my issue. My issue is you're coming to me and my body. I don't know where you've been. I don't know what you do. I don't know how you do it. So when you touch me, you will put on gloves. I think for healthcare, that was one of the biggest things for me, is that they don't believe, and I don't want to say they don't believe, but you will go in and people will touch you and there's no barrier that's there. And that is very upsetting to me.
So that was a little bit of stress that you were going to, but I want to say it sounds like you all have to come to an agreement, and she's like, okay, I have to do this for, people ain't never wore gloves again after you, but she can't tell this.
Shortly after me, she stopped being a midwife. Oh my God. Well, I don't know that it was because of me. I think I was like towards the end. It might have been, I don't know, but that was
sure.
Well, honestly, well, I had to be induced. And so then I had a problem. There was a complication with my epidural. And so when it came time for delivery, it was like half of my body I felt nothing, and the other half, I felt everything. So it turned out to be a bit of a traumatic event, just, in that sense, with all the things that came up. But you really need to click and understand with the person. And in the beginning, I thought we had that understanding, but then she was just one of those people this is how I'm going to do it. And I was like, but I'm the one giving birth. So I need to be part of this too.
It wasn't anything to do because you were going to, your Black mom. That was just how she was.
Yeah, that was just her. That was just
her. And my second thing that you brought up, because you're an educator and you want to, you make sure you educate people about history, because Black history is American history, or at least African American history is American history. Who is that audience? Your girls? You taught your girls. Your girls had a different history lesson than everybody else in your class. Well, who are you getting that curriculum to?
I make that available, so I do a lot. Definitely with my girls, they're definitely taught. My bookshelves are full. My house. There are things I quiz them after we watch certain things. I ask them. There are a lot of political and racial discussions that go on between me and my girls, and so that's something that they have to be able to do, right? Because like right now, one of my daughters, my oldest, in school, they're going through in her AP politics class, they're talking about American politics, right? And so I'm hearing and seeing the information that they're giving to her, and being able to understand, she's basically getting civics right now, which I'm like, this is perfect. You're in my wheelhouse, baby. So we're able to kind of go through things and to be able to break it down. So they were talking about like the Bill of Rights, and they've been talking about the Constitution and going through and looking at the amendments and things like that. And she wants to perhaps pursue education in the U.S. when she goes to college. That's all going to depend on what happens with this election. But, so those are things she wants to do. But one of the things I've always stressed is that my children belong to two countries. They need to know their history of both of those countries. You should never be in a position like this is a part of who you are. You need to know it. So I give that to them, and in turn, then they're able to have conversations with their friends. And then, as an educator, depending on what I'm teaching or what the focus is at that time, a lot of these themes will also come up. I've been working. I have a whole bunch of plans, lesson plans, and things like that. That I have been trying to get myself, since I'm a one-woman show, it's a lot of information to have to go through, and that stuff will also be on my website. That'll be available. And so it's just in any way that I can. So I do a lot of there's organizations that I've been involved with that I've done things, I've done some things with organizations we've worked with together. So it's just anytime I have an opportunity to be able to talk about it and to make connections. One of the things I try to focus on.
You focus on.
One of the things I try to focus on, especially because there's a lot of conversation about, if you're not in America, it's like I would talk to friends and family back in the States, and we would have a conversation about something, but you're not here. You don't understand. Well, I do understand, but not only do I understand it from your perspective, I'm also seeing it from a global perspective. So I try to make that a part of the conversation as much as I can as well. I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, why do they think you don't understand? Because you live in another country.
Yeah, because if there are a lot of people that think that if I'm not actually living in the United States at the time that something is happening, because I'm not there on the streets locally with them, I guess, that I don't really understand how things are impacting them. And it's always interesting because it's like, first of all, I not only understand what it is, but I have more of a grasp on it because I usually know more about the local issues that they're talking about than they do, because I make it a point to educate myself. But I think that that's a big part of it is people don't understand. They just think if, you're living in another country, you're totally out of touch with what's happening.
Well, you know what, Tanya? Is that one reason you put together your voting guide? What's the title? It's for Americans on both sides of the Atlantic?
For Americans, yeah, both sides of the Atlantic. I called it my voter and activism planner. And so...
Okay, so take it out of that, please. Yeah, the background, and yes, take us through that.
So
I was so excited when I saw it.
Oh, well, thank you. Did you download it? Have you looked at it? Have you used it? Have you?
Well, I'm not going to say I didn't need it because I am an ardent U.S. overseas voter. So I mean, Angela, but I have shared it.
Well, thank you.
You know what I mean? And I was like, yes. Is this the first year you did it? Why did you do it? And walk us through it.
So this was the first year that I did it. It kind of started, I the voter and activism planner, I had started to create, it's also something else. It was looking at creating planners that focus specifically on Black women and Black women mental health and organization, that kind of thing. And as I was going through that and sort of thinking about what was coming with this election, one of the things that I kept hearing and that I would realize, like, my girls, we would be out walking somewhere. I always have my pods in because I'm listening to some type of political podcast. And so with listening to that is just randomly, I would just start yelling because I'm yelling at the people. That's not what that word means. So my daughters are like, we'll go on a walk, Mom, but you cannot have your pods in.
But we the random bursts. So
I do, because I get totally into it. Like, I live and breathe this stuff. Like, politics is a part of who I am fundamentally, I guess. And so it's so much, so I don't think about it and I get lost into what I'm listening to, and then I'll just start yelling at people when they come on and just say crazy things. And my girls are like, Mom, you're doing it again. Like, oh, okay, sorry. But one of the things that I found that I yelled the most about was the way that language is used.
And my God, yes, I have to agree with you. It seems like today people don't know what words mean, and they just use them. That's one of like the things that's been driving me crazy about the past 12 months is that people are just using words and they don't know what they mean, but they're implying that, something that's not real. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's exactly what it is, Angela. You're correct, because you hear people that are using these words and they're using them because they've heard them somewhere else. And so, and because it aligns with whatever it is that they were thinking or what have you, but they really don't understand what any of these mean. And so as I was going through, I was doing the plan, I was like, at first it was just going to be something that was like a vocabulary workbook, right? Like people need to learn these words. And so, but then when I started with that, I was like, well, you need to have a kind of context for how you're doing it. And then it's looking at this election cycle and sort of knowing everything that's coming up and knowing what the stakes are. I was like, well, you know what? Let me just put together something. And it was just kind of a random thing. I'm going to put this together. People need information. I know what I have to go through to vote. What do you have to do? I know the vocabulary I know and how these words are used, but what do you know? I know the community that I have in mind when I'm going to the ballot. What do you think about your community? Are you thinking about your community or are you just thinking about yourself? Right? But even if you're only thinking about yourself, the choices that you're going to make at the ballot, how are they going to help you or hurt you in 3 months, in 6 months, in 1 year, in 10 years? I think that people don't think about that when it comes. They get into a moment and it's easy to lose track of these things because it seems like we have elections that never end. It's despite the
elections between, thanks for bringing that up.
So much.
Because we're constantly begging people to vote, me and Angela. Yeah, I mean, that's why our nickname, people probably behind our back call us the begging sisters or something. We're constantly begging people to vote, saying how important it is. How do we not get caught up in election fatigue or not, it's like, yeah, you said that was the most important election last time. Like that, the Chicken Little syndrome, election fatigue.
Yeah.
How do we make sure we're countering that?
Well, that's one of the things that I was trying to be able to, I don't necessarily know that I can counter it, but that's one of the things I wanted to address because you also have to have a level of self-care that's in there. I'm in this stuff all of the time. I know that there are times when I reach that part where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I need a break. I'll sit back and like binge watch something completely unnecessary, on Netflix or wherever, because I'm like, I need to step back from this. And I used to feel bad about that because I was like, but I need to be doing the work. I need to be doing this. But you can't be this kind of constant, always going, because then it does lead to that fatigue. And I think that I also looked at it from a point, being an overseas voter, the information that we get is usually, for the most part, for the average overseas voter, they're going to get something from like CNN, or they're going to get something from Financial Times or Wall Street Journal. And so they're going to these major outlets. A lot of times they're not looking at local news, which is not really accessible to a lot of people in those communities to begin with, let alone if you're living in another country. Depending on the country that you're in, you may also have limited access to some of these things. And so what the information that we do get is them wanting to frame that the world is on fire. And I mean, the world is on fire. I'm aware of that. But it can't be just this constant, like, I'm afraid to wake up and see what's on my phone. And I know when the Orange Abomination was in there every single day, that is how my day started, was what has happened that is going to destroy the world.
Yes,
And
that's how I started my day every day during his reign of terror, and so many other people. We were all, I don't know if you felt this way or not, but I know a lot of people were just scared about what was going to happen while they were asleep. What happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Right for fun.
That was real. That was real. That was trauma. And yoga helps me. it's still real. That's why we're like hustling to get these votes in, right? For Kamala, because we know what we lived through in 2016 and 2020. We're not going back. I mean, that's your slogan for a reason. That called on for a reason, right? That comes for a reason. We're not going back. But that's why I do yoga. I'm so glad you mentioned self-care. Angela, what do you do for your self-care? You used to swim? What happened? I think the pandemic put it into that.
Yeah, that's true. It did. I work out with weights and stuff. I have a trainer. It's okay, a positive thing.
Yeah, no, good, Tanya. Thanks for bringing that up. And you know what? I actually tried to get a Yoga for Harris group together, not like these other Harris groups to fundraise, but to like offer meditation or, wellness stuff for our activists that are out there, doing the work, like putting together voting guides. So back to your voting guide.
Well, that was also another thing because one of the things, and I'll kind of tie this not only into political but also racial lines, is that there would be things that I would see with, planners and sort of let's meditate or let's journal, right? Journal prompts and things like that. And I've realized that I start looking at what's selling. One of the first things, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, when something happens or I see something, my first question is, who'd you vote for? Because one of the things that we do have as people, especially Black people, is that we have economic power to be able to do things. And so we need to start being really mindful about who we give our hard-earned dollars to. And so I would see things like with journals or what have you, and I was like, oh, this looks nice. And then I'd go on their website, and then I'd find out it's some Christian mom, white woman, with 20 kids doing this, and it's all good for her. I'm not knocking that. But when I have to ask too many questions about whether or not I'm helping you oppress me, then I can't do that. And so I've become very mindful of that. There are a lot of products that are like no more in this house. And so
okay, Tanya, wait a minute. Listen, good. I'm glad you brought that up. On the Black women in Europe, we did a buy black. Well, it's a lot of work, hard to keep up. But yeah, that's important. And during the pandemic, we definitely a series, Let's Do Us. And so we were highlighting different entrepreneurs. We even had a therapist, Black woman, Dima. I don't want to mispronounce her Portuguese last name, who did a fantastic session for us. This was right after, we were literally hanging on right after George Floyd, right, Angela? Just our community collective. So I mean, we touched on that as well. So let's do a quick rundown of, because this is in your wheelhouse, what are some products that Black people may have in their homes right now that if we were making conscious buying decisions, we may choose not to support that company?
God, okay. You're just going to put me all the way on block.
Because I know you won't lie. You don't have to tell them all. Because I say hours, like we talked about one day, but like your top 5 or 2, because I'm looking around in the kitchen and if something comes up now, I'll tell you. My shame.
But I will tell you, and but not all of it has to do with Black. Like, we don't do Nestle products, which makes life really difficult.
Well, that's to say, you're going to break down why exactly, because just because we're Black, that we don't care about Nestle's bad practices.
Nestle is a terrible company, and no one should buy anything from them.
Real people do all know what Nestle
has headquartered near my house, so it's just like they're like ingrained. Yeah. So it's really I look at things. So it was PayPal was kind of on the list for a minute there. But Peter Thiel doesn't own it anymore. But I think the fact that might still it. Well, yeah, but I'm hoping he still has like sort of no connection that's going on there. I mean, we definitely don't deal with any kind of Tesla product or anything from that crazy person. So in looking at it that way, food wise, but that has always been tricky as well, because Like for one, so Jack Daniels is off the list. So that's not something we do. If you go on
We do Uncle Nearest, huh?
oh yes, I do. And then when I was able to purchase it here, so I'm just waiting for Beyonce, Giselle Carter, Knowles Carter to get it right and make it to where I can get my Sardinas here. Otherwise, I have to go to France or to UK to be able to get it. So there are things like that. If I know of a connection there, so I try to be mindful with that. But that can get tricky when you're overseas because there are some of these companies that when they go into another market, they have different names.
Right.
And so you don't always know that local brand is associated with another brand that you don't like or that you can't deal with or that's problematic. The one that none of us have been able to quit, which is kind of sad in a way, is Amazon. That's been the thing, because especially moving overseas, most of the things that you need or want to have access to, you're going to be able to find it there versus going into the store. Food products and things like that, I had learned early on that I have to just make my own. So I've tried to do it that way. So when it comes to like food and things, I've tried to I don't know that I necessarily really have a longer list for that. Nestle is obviously the first one that comes to mind. But I really make everything from scratch as much as I can. Like we have a garden on our balcony, so I grow my herbs, I grow my peppers, things like that. So we try to grow as much as possible.
Yeah. I have a garden too. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so wait a minute. Have you? So what I have are the seeds to be able to grow some grain, but I'm not sure about the condition that I need for those. And that's one I haven't tried because it's different from cabbage. So if you have any hints on that, I will take them. I got some collards. I have seeds.
Yeah.
So do I. So do I.
The thing about growing greens is that you just need a lot of space. Or if you have like a way to make it like several levels, to grow them. I have grown them and they turned out fine. I don't normally grow them because it's a lot of work in a lot of ways, especially acquiring the seeds, and it's not a common vegetable. A collard, okay, kale, you can get that from everywhere, and I have grown kale and I love it. It's just so nice to grow. I didn't grow too much this year because I went to the States a lot, so I grew some green beans. I grew tomatoes and potatoes. I have a ton of potatoes.
Potatoes are the best. That's so easy, and you did that. I found that to be an easy one to do. Onions are my next. Onions and garlic are what I want to try for next.
Garlic is a little difficult. It's but you have to start really early in the year. So start it in the house before, like in February or March, because it takes a long time for it to get that bulb, for sure.
No.
Yeah. I also grew cucumbers because, as you may have seen, I'm addicted to cucumber juice. So I just grow my own in the summertime, but I didn't grow very much more than that. We have a fig tree and a blackberry bush that grows on its own, but normally I would grow a lot more, but I just spent too much time gone this summer. So didn't want to grow anything.
Will you really stay that gardening, going through this therapeutic, that part of your wellness, your well-being?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's very, the best thing about growing things is there's two things for me. One is I like the fact that I know where the food came from, and I like being able to provide something healthy for my family. and it's also nice, to go out and take care of the plants and then picking them. I don't know. It's a very nice thing. And this year, since since it's not illegal, I tried growing cannabis this year, and
did it? Okay, so wait, were you in soil or did you do hydroponic?
no, I did it in soil. I did it in soil, so you can grow 3 plants per person.
Yeah, I think it's 2 male and 1 female, right? That you're able to do.
Oh, well, I don't know. All mine were female, so I don't know. I don't need them. If you have a male, then you're going to end up getting seeds. And
okay.
nobody want, and unless you're trying to grow seeds, trying to get seeds. But yeah, it worked out very well. I as Adrian said, I can grow everything. So I'm.
Oh, I want to have a separate flavor. Angela, you and I might need to have a separate.
I'm not in Germany, because y'all going to be together, Kiki and Kaka, and celebrating election victory.
Or just smoking weed.
Exactly. Make it some edibles. Make it some edibles. That's my specialty.
Okay, so great. Because I see the beginnings of maybe a co-venture, definitely friendship, lots of commonalities, voting activists, mothers, can grow anything, and like to educate people. And so your voting guide, now tell us how it's structured.
So the guide is structured. It has, it's made to where you can either use it in its digital form, or you can use it, you can print it out and have it. And so what I tried to do was to put it in a few different ways. So you've got the covers that's there. I'm a big proponent that, especially when dealing with things digitally, that I really like for it to have some kind of sense of though I'm still kind of working with paper. Because I'm kind of in that hybrid of in between, that I like the ease of being able to do something digital and knowing that I have it with me. But then I also like to know that it sort of has some kind of a function or look to it that reminds me of paper, because I'm still attached to paper. But it sort of goes through, so you have the index page. And the index page is set up to where it has all the boxes of the different parts that are there. So you can go to any section that you want to, if you want to start with that first or what have you. And so those boxes that are there, they're all, if you use it electronically, they're linked to the exact section of the planner it will go to. And then on every page within the planner, you have up in the top right corner a little box that says Vote 2024. And if you click on that, it will always take you back to the index. So that will always take you home. So I basically set it up, kind of given a little information as to talking to the citizens. So that citizen, no matter where you are, if you're in the States, if you're abroad, that's looking at citizens and talking about elections and sort of giving a little bit of information. One of the things I try to do is to give a little bit about myself, or to make it a little personal that way, because I think then it's more like having a conversation with people and not just, here's a workbook, here are the instructions, sit down, do it. I wanted it to feel a little more comfortable. And so it has that. So you've got the sections of my community. So I thought my community was important because one of the things that we have is a lot of people are completely polarized right now. Everybody hates everybody else if you listen to what the media is telling you and you listen to all of these other things. And there are some places where, in fact, that might be true. But I think that what we haven't done, and I wanted to give an opportunity for that, was to just sit down and think about what does community mean to you, first of all? Is it your community? Is it your friends, the people you hang out with? Is it the people you work with? Is it where you live? Like, what does that community mean to you? So your definition of that. But then once you get into that, it's being able to kind of pick apart the different parts of your community. What does it look like? What do the decisions that I might make about my voting choices, how will it affect my household? But then, hey, I have this neighbor, and I really kind of like my neighbor. And so if I make this decision, what is that going to mean for my neighbor? And so the plan was to be able to have people kind of sit with themselves and be able to look at all of these different aspects in order to find out what really is important for them. We get bombarded with information, and there are so many different places to where you can get a lot of myths and disinformation, right? And so being able to kind of sit down, like you can hear something, but have you ever talked to your neighbor to find out what they feel? Have you ever, talked to them? So, and that was having that was the point of my community. So then you have a doodle page on there with a mind map that you could just kind of go and break through all of those different sections to kind of think about what it is. For international, what does your community look like, right? So a lot of people probably aren't going to have a bunch of Americans that are living next door to them if you're living overseas. But when you're looking at your community, you're also looking at the fact that if things don't work out right at home, it still will have an impact on those of us living overseas. And I think that that's not stressed enough. You're still going to have to go for services. So imagine if, and this is just truly an Orwellian dystopian theoretical question that I'm posing, because we will win. But if we didn't, and that person was able to get back in, and Project 2025 becomes part of what our reality is, the fact of how they're going to gut all of these different institutions and the impact that that is going to have. A lot of people, I think, haven't made the connection that if it happens in the U.S., they're like, well, I don't live there anyway. It won't affect me. Well, yeah, it will. It will, because you're still an American citizen. If you look to be able to give that up, people don't understand. You can't just walk in and go, okay, I've decided I'm not going to be an American anymore. You have to pay an exit tax. So there's a process that's involved with that. And in order to do that, you have to go to one of the official locations. So if you've got a complete system breakdown, if you need to update your passport, if you need a visa, if you need anything that is going to happen, any type of American service, you're going to have to go to an official place for that. But then if you don't have a connection with these countries, or the government has shut down all of these resources, how is our embassy going to function in whatever country that you're in? What kind of services are you going to be able to get from there? How is that going to be impacted? So there are a lot of things that go on that way. And so when thinking about community, you also need to think about, how are you integrated into your local society? How are you making your money? Where's your money stored? If you're an American, you're living overseas, but you still are getting a Social Security check, or you're still getting any type of benefit or service that's going to come through that way, military benefit, anything like that, all of that is going to be impacted with you living in another country. And if you don't already have a system that is set up to be able to help you, that is going to make it really difficult for you to function or to figure out how to be. And then people also don't understand that if you're living in a country, let me use this as an example. When President Biden was able to get all of the people, the prisoners that were being held in Russia, right? He was able to get a number of people and make a deal. Part of that deal was based on relationships that he had with people in other countries, Germany specifically. They gave someone back that they didn't want to, but it was clearly said that it is because of the relationship and because it's you asking. This is why I would be willing to do this, knowing that they were going to take political points for that here in Germany. And you look at the orange abomination, even attempting to do that, let alone helping anyone. That's the thing. See, and that's the thing. It's when you have global relations, right? You have military that's in other places. You have people that travel for work. You have people that travel for pleasure. But if people know that as soon as you're there, you're fair game for anything, what do you think how safe does that make you? And so that's being outside of borders. But then also, what do you think that means for being safe at home? If you're saying it's okay for Putin to go and just take over Ukraine, let him take it. It's his thing. What's to say Putin's next stop isn't going to be to Alaska?
No, it would be Germany. So I don't know why people, I know that people in Poland and other countries, they believe that it would be them, but it would be us because we have so many American military bases here.
Well, that most definitely, but I was not just thinking about overseas, like for us. Like you are absolutely 1,000% correct. I was thinking more along the lines because there are people who are in the States and never been outside of the States and don't really understand. They think that would never happen to them. Yeah. So it's that exceptionalism that I try to, so it's being able to kind of see it from both ways. It's so, because if you don't have allies over here and then we're the next and all of this is going to go through, because I mean, even when Hitler was there, his goal was to eventually make it across the pond. Right? World domination. So when you have nothing that'll prevent that from happening on U.S. soil. So, and that's what, and so those are the different kind of stakes. So that was the whole, like, when you're thinking about your community, sort of being able to do that. But then as we said earlier, language matters. And so that's why I had I put a section in here to where the educator of me was like, it's a verb, it's a noun, it's how you pronounce it, this is phonetic, this is the definition, and here's another definition when you see it in use, and also giving some examples of these words, like when we talk about stuff being rigged, or people having entitlement, or fascism. You'll hear this person speak and like, oh, the radical fascist, Marxist, communist, and it's like you're describing like completely different structures, but you're just throwing them in as a word salad, and people have no clue what any of these things mean. So I put a part in there that would let people, these are the actual definitions of them. Look at them, put them into a sentence that you're going to use throughout the day. If you hear someone use that in a sentence, see if they're actually using it in the right way, right? It's part of just language, because language matters. And then the bond with this section. Okay, that's like, is that the Schoolhouse Rock thing? I love that because I love Schoolhouse Rock. So you're bringing this to us like that, so it's definitely digestible. It doesn't have to be boring. It's important. It takes you exercises to think about community in ways that maybe you haven't. And then wrap up telling us, like at the very end or like along the way, do you point to different websites? Do you encourage people to go to their state websites? Are you recommending Wikipedia? But before we go, I want to make sure that the link, we're going to have the link in the show notes for sure. Remind people that it's not too late to vote, but you need to act quickly. If you're stateside and you, one of the things, the first thing Tanya says, like, plan to vote, you need a plan. How do you say it? Plan to vote? Plan to vote, you need a plan, yeah.
Be a plan.
Yeah.
So, so I'll make sure that they know where to get it. So in there, do you tell them where to go to make sure they're registered and things like that?
For this one, I can't remember. I think I put in for I will vote, but I didn't put a lot in this one that I put out that had those links that were in it, because when I put out the promotion for it, those links were like in my tweet and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no problem. We'll make sure they're included in the show notes.
Yeah, because there are some that I use, and then there's some that I just don't use only because I've been voting overseas for a long time. So I sort of know where I need to go. And
you know what? Before we got
I think it's my mind. That wasn't it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. And we'll have it in the notes. But do me a favor, before we go, tell people how you voted from Germany. Describe your process and how do you vote? Have you taken the time to already vote?
I always vote yes. I have my vote here. I have my ballot. This year was a little different, and so there have been some issues with my ballot this year, just simply because of the way that they sent it to me. So I I request my ballot, check my voter registration, I put in for my ballot, and then they email it to me. And so usually that's not a problem. So then when the ballot is ready, they will send it to me, and then I have an affidavit that's there that I have to attest that I am, in fact, who I say I am, and that I'm voting, all of those things.
Are you a Florida voter? I know that
I used to be a Florida voter, but I'm a Missouri voter now.
Okay. No, it just sounded very similar to the process that I had to go through.
Yeah. So that is when I had to do the same thing when I was voting in Florida. I was a Florida voter up until 2014. And then after that, I became a Missouri voter. And so they will email me my ballot. I print it out. I go through the process of if there are positions on there. So I research, especially in the primary time, you have numerous people that are there. But I go up and I have to look up the candidates. I have to look up the issues, see where they are, see where how I should vote on a particular thing. Then we have constitutional amendments. So this year we have 5 constitutional amendments that are on the ballot. And then we have, I think it was 24 judges that are up, some of them being state Supreme Court judges. So Missouri has this thing to where, as a federal judge, you are appointed by the governor. And then when it comes up for term, the people decide whether or not you get to stay there, right? So you get the job by appointment, but then you have to keep it by votes. So there are a lot of judges that are up as well. So I have to go through and research all of that. And we have abortion, which is on our ballot this year. And then there are some other constitutional amendments about casinos and things like that. So I have to go and look up those issues and make sure that I have that. Usually when I get my ballot, I'm able to print it out on paper, do my research, take my notes, whatever. And then I print out a clean copy, fill it out, sign it. And then I send it back along with a copy of my signed affidavit. I always send it back through post. And it is with return receipts that I'm able to do because I have to return my actual ballot, paper ballot back. They don't allow email submissions. I was only able to do that once, and that was during the pandemic. And so that's how I send my ballot back for them. So I know every state has a different way of how they manage that. This year it got a bit tricky because I wasn't able to print my ballot. It was just this little box because the formatting that they had for it, it basically came out microscopic on the page. Wow. So I had lots of conversations that went on about that. I bitched about it on Twitter. And it was, so normally it would take up the full page, but I was provided a bit of information that I was not aware of, which means that now I will no longer be requesting email ballots. I will be requesting my actual ballot. Because apparently when they send you the email ballot in the state of Missouri, when you send your ballot back, they don't use my printout for anything. What they do is they take my printout and they have somebody, and he kept making it a point to tell me it was a bipartisan team that does this. But somebody else goes and fills out an official ballot that they're able to then put through their machine.
That's weird.
Are you telling? So this was the first time that not only am I hearing this, that is what they're going to do with my ballot, but then I wasn't able to print it out in the way that I had been before. And so there are just a lot of wanky things. So what the email that they sent me, the PDF, is an odd shape of like 20-inch by like 13-inch. So it's like their ballot page, which that's the way their ballots always are. He tried to tell me that this year that was different because of the number of things that were on it. But I have my previous ballot, so I didn't trust that. But then that's when he told me that basically when the ballot comes in, they have somebody else fill out an official ballot. So I'm like, basically somebody else is casting my vote for me then? That makes no sense.
That seems weird.
Who you telling? And this was the first time that anything like this has ever happened. And it gave me a really big pause because I'm considering, I'm very much in a red state where I'm voting, but my vote still counts. And then B is because of everything that is on the line for this election, but also because of the constitutional amendments with abortion being on there, and they tried to keep it off. And then with all of the judges and two of the Supreme Court judges, the state Supreme Court judges that voted against this being on the ballot, they're up on this ballot. So there are just a lot of things going on with this election that just made that very, very questionable. So I had to make sure that I was protected as far as the questions that I asked and what I can and cannot do with this ballot, what it means, all of that. So I've had to kind of do a lot of MacGyver to get it to print out so that I can actually see what's in there. And so my ballot is going to be finalized, and that'll be going out in the mail. I have postage and everything for that. So, but that's the step that we have to do in order to be able to send the ballot back.
Yeah, and don't forget, also in Missouri, there is the Senate seat that's up, and Josh Hawley, one of the world's most terrible senators, is up for re-election, and we definitely got to get rid of him.
Look at. Yeah. So he's up for that. And then you have, so there are a lot of, we have the governor, we have Secretary of State. Secretary of State is going to be super important. We have a governor, lieutenant governor. So we have lots of, basically every seat is on the ballot in Missouri. And so that's something that, people need to pay attention, and it's voting blue all the way down naturally. But I think that's the part that people don't understand. And it's sort of to tie back a little bit to why I did this planner is because there's a section in there that deals with your candidates, right? So it's looking at the state and the local. And when I did the branches of government, I tried to break that down as much as I could simply for people so that they understand that there's a big process that's involved in this, because a lot of people are under the assumption that when you vote for a president, when the president gets in there, the president is just like this magical Negro or what have you, that just goes in, waves a wand, and everything is just how you want it. And that's not how government works.
No.
And it's understanding that these local elections and who you put in your state houses and who you send to Washington, all of that is important, and it has an impact. And so that's everything from school board to your local trash ordinance, all those things that are going up. It's an ongoing process. And there's a lot more that's involved in that.
Yes.
So that was a big part of also, I don't know, that might have also been a really long-winded way of me. This is why I did it. Why I did the planner, because I wanted people to have the big picture, but taking that big picture and putting it into smaller pieces that you can go in and out of.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And I might have to contact you again to maybe do a civics lesson, like as a webinar. I feel like a lot of people don't understand how our government works. And I mean, not just the part about voting for president, but like how bills are passed, how laws are made. And it's, it's not just a decree. We don't have a dictatorship. And so the president cannot just decree what is going to happen. It takes the Congress to make it happen, for sure.
Congress is supposed to legislate, and that's their whole function for going there, is to create, is to compromise, is to find solutions for problems for us. And you don't see that. This is the most ineffective Congress that we've had since like the 1800s.
Yeah.
I think there was one time before, like back in 1802 or something.
Yeah. But these people are the worst. Definitely, we have to take back the House as for the Democrats, and then maybe we can get something done, as opposed to what's happening now, where the Speaker of the House, who's a Republican, won't call the Congress back to get more funding for FEMA because of the hurricanes, which is a shameful thing, and he should actually be voted out for sure.
Went to the day after, he said he was not going to call them back, that this should happen after the election. And then the day after that, he went to North Carolina, to one of those areas ravaged by the hurricane. For what purpose, I have absolutely no clue, considering he's in Louisiana. Exactly. But now we have the problem to where FEMA can't even get in to provide the protection that they need to people and the services that they need, because there's armed militia that is targeting FEMA workers. I mean, like, at some point, we need to say, like, excuse my French, but what the fuck, man? This needs to stop.
Yes, it does need to stop. And that's why it's so important to vote, because we can't let Donald Trump get back into office, and we need to get rid of some of these Republicans that are fomenting dissent and causing people to be hurt. Tanya, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a very elucidating conversation with you. And I do know what the word means.
No, it's probably in the vocabulary section of Tanya's voting guide.
No, she knew that would have it. She was good. I knew what she meant.
I echo Angela and want to thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we look forward to, the election. Everybody go to votefromabroad.org and request your absentee ballot. If you haven't done it, don't wait. Ask for it to come by email. Do not delay. This is not a test. It is not a joke. We got to get this done. Because
all gas, no break.
That's right. And because honestly, I believe, and I could be wrong, but it's just my belief, that if we elect a woman president, the whole world is going to change. It's going to be a different world, and maybe we'll get the Equal Rights Amendment put into law, so that we can. If you're not familiar with the Equal Rights Amendment, basically it states, and I am paraphrasing, that no law can be made in regards to the sex of an individual. And so they wouldn't be able to make laws that only are for women anymore. And that will make a huge difference in most women's lives. So vote for yourself, vote for your family, vote for your community, vote for the world. And thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Stay angry.
My fellow Americans abroad, Tamara Tooney here. Many of you know me as Dr. Melinda Warner on Law & Order SVU, and as Whitney Houston's mom, and I Want to Dance with Somebody. But right now, I'm in Pittsburgh at City Theater doing the play POTUS, which is a political satire. It is hilarious, but there is nothing funny about this election, friends. And so I am reaching out to you to encourage you to get your ballots and vote. My friends abroad, we need you to vote. Your vote matters. Your vote is important. Your vote can definitely affect the outcome of this election. So go to votefromabroad.org and get your ballot. You have to get your ballot every year. Yeah, that's just a bloody actor there behind me, my fellow actor. So get your ballots from votefromabroad.org. They can answer any questions you have, but it is so important that you participate in this election. So thank you, and I'll see you the next time I'm in London or Paris or wherever in the world you might be. Vote. Mwah.
Thanks for joining us today. I hope this episode made you think and made you want to vote.
So do I. Because voting is the birthright they didn't even want us to have.
And we're women on top of that, and they didn't want us voting either.
So vote, vote, vote every chance you get.
Don't forget, votefromabroad.org for absentee ballots for U.S. citizens overseas. If you live in the U.S., go to iwillvote.com to register to vote and to verify your registration. They're throwing people off the voting rolls, so you really need to check.
Yeah, they're still doing that. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.